Hi, I hope that everyone watching this video is doing well. I'm Sarah, I'm a researcher at Protocol Labs, and today I'm going to present our paper Wrinkle, Protecting Against Long-Range Attacks, that was written with Lera Nikolaenko and George Danezis. I'm going to start by giving a quick introduction of proof of stake and especially the proof of stake setting that we are considering in this paper. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with the concept of proof of stake. It has been proposed as an alternative to proof of work in order to consume less energy. So in this paper, we're gonna assume some kind of BFT-like consensus protocol. So what this means is that we will have a set of validators, which will be a subset of coin holders that are gonna run a protocol together that is similar to a BFT protocol. So you can think of it as some type of like three-phase commit, for example. And so the difference between this type of proof-of-stake protocol and, for example, longest chain consensus protocol is that in this type of protocol, there are no forks. Additionally, we allow for the validator set to change. So it means that we can start with, here in this slide, a validator set V, and then later on, these validators, they will decide to leave the protocol, and some new validators, so the set V prime, will come and run the protocol. So such protocols have been presented, for example, Hot Stuff or Tendermint, and I'm sure there are many others alike. So one type of attacks that has been discussed in the proof-of-stake literature are long-range attacks. So in a long-range attacks, the adversary corrupts the past validator of a proof-of-stake protocol and then is using their keys in order to rewrite the entire history of the blockchain. So the idea is like these validators, they have left the system, so they have, no more stake. So the adversary could join buy their keys at almost no stake because they don't care. And then once the adversary has their keys, because in proof of stake it takes absolutely no time to create a block, unlike proof of work, then the adversary will be able to instantaneously create a fork that is at least as long as the honest chain. And the adversary could also potentially simulate a validator change in exchange. These attacks are very concerning, and the reason is that a user that has been offline for a long time, that would wake up and come online and see these two chains, will have no way of knowing which one is the honest one and which one is the adversarial one, because from an external point of view, they both seem perfectly legitimate. And this is why we propose Winkle in order to thwart this type of attacks. So how does Winkle work? So the idea of Winkle is that on top of having validators sign block, we will have users also signing block. So that means that an adversary that got the keys of the validators will be able to rewrite a chain, but this chain will not have the keys of the users, the coin holders, that the adversary has not corrupted. So the idea is now, whenever a user will create a transaction, this transaction, just as before, will have a sender, receiver, and amount fields. And on top of that, a new field, which is a block. So for example, the hash of a block that will be, considered a vote or a signature on that block. So the motivation for doing that is that the set of users is much bigger than the set of validators. So to recap, in Winkle, votes for blocks are included in transaction. Because we consider a BFT-like consensus protocol, it means that there are no forks. So users don't have to make a choice between two blocks. They just vote on the block that they see. So there's no problem of equivocation, for example. Additionally, each coin carries a vote, and each transaction updates the vote to a newer block. So let me illustrate this. So let's assume that we have this database where account A has 2 coins and account B has 1 coin. By default, we assume that every coin is voting on the genesis block. So now we assume that A sends a coin to C and votes for B1. What this means is that in this new state of the database, there will be 2 coins voting for block B1. One associated with account A and one associated with account C. Now we assume that B sends a coin to A and votes for B2. So what it means now is that we have 2 coins voting for B1 and 1 for B2. And in account A, there is 1 voting for B1 and 1 voting for B2. So that's what we say when we mean that each coin carries its vote. Additionally, we have some requirements. We ask that each account has to vote for the latest block or epoch. And also, we say that whenever 2/3 of the coins have voted for a block, then we consider this block checkpointed. So we see that this is a rather simple mechanism, right? You just include the latest block that you are aware of in your transaction. Okay, now what could go wrong? So what could go wrong is that the adversary is also allowed to have some fraction of the stake. For example, to keep with like the traditional BFT assumption, let's say that the adversary is allowed to have 1/3 of the stake at every block. So what could happen? Let's assume here that the adversary sends 1 coin to Alice and that Bob sends 1 coin to the adversary. So we see that in both blocks, the adversary has 1 coin, right? But now what could happen is that in the block that the adversary is rewriting as part of the attack, it could choose to simply not include some transaction. So in that case, for example, the adversary will, not include the transaction where it is sending its coin to Bob, but it will include Bob's transaction that is sending him 1 coin. So this means that in the adversarial chain, the adversary now has 2 coins. And so we see that this will, break our security, for example. So how do we achieve security? So we achieve security by asking that the adversary has a maximum of Fy fraction of stake. We also ask that a maximum of Fx stake moves within an epoch. And we require that Fy plus Fx over 2 is less than 1/3. So this will be our security assumption. And this assumption will ensure that the adversary cannot obtain more than 1/3 of the stake, even in its adversarial chain, where it is handpicking which transaction to include. And this means that the adversary cannot forge a checkpoint. Additionally to this, Winkle allows for key rotation. So a key rotation means that now the adversary can dynamically corrupt no users. So what we ask is like whenever users want to rotate their key, just as a normal transaction, they also have to include a vote for the latest block that they are aware of. And this property will give us like forward security. So again, let me illustrate this. Let's assume that there is 1 block where the adversary has corrupted key PKB1 and another block later on where the adversary has corrupted key PKA2. So what happens is that here, Alice's key rotation from PKA1 to PKA2 includes a commitment to Bob's key rotation. So it means that if the adversary wants to use its, newly corrupted key PKA2, it has to give up key PKB1. And so what that means, like the adversary cannot accumulate stake and keys this way, because the adversary doesn't have access to PKB2. Something else that we consider in our paper is Binting. So as you know, in most cryptocurrency, new coins are minted at every block. So in our case, what it means that an adversary that is doing a long-range attack could be able to just mint new coins to itself. And so block after block, the adversary will be able to accumulate more stake and break the security of our protocol. So what we ask now is that mint transactions have to be checkpointed before they are effective. So it means that an adversary that is doing a long-range attack and that try to get the minted coins to itself will not be able to do so, because every mint transaction in the adversarial chain will never be checkpointed. So this attack will not be feasible by adding this condition. And this is related to the stake bleeding attack in proof-of-stake blockchain by Peter Ghazi and his co-author. Okay, now let's discuss Winkle's efficiency. So in order to get an idea of the efficiency of this protocol, we decided to simulate Winkle on Bitcoin and Ethereum. And even though Bitcoin and Ethereum are not proof-of-stake based, they are proof-of-work. Here we are only interested in users' behavior, so this is not a problem. So we simulated Winkle on Ethereum and Bitcoin, and we saw how long it will take to checkpoint a block. And the bad news is that it's quite long, between 50 days and 1 year for Ethereum, and between 4 months and 3 years for Bitcoin. And this is in part because of the hodl movement that exists in cryptocurrency, where users are asked to not use their coin. And we see that, if you have one coin that is dormant in an account, then this will not be good for the efficiency of Winkle. So in order to bypass this efficiency problem, we also present in our paper a delegation scheme. So the idea is our users, Alice and Bob, they will be able to delegate their coins to a delegate. And it means that even if they don't move their coin, if their coin are sleeping in their account, whenever their delegate will be voting, their coins will count towards that vote. Again, we simulated this delegation scheme, and we saw that it greatly improves efficiency. Especially for both Bitcoin and Ethereum, we could have a block, checkpointed in less than 4 days. Also, one thing to note here is this, period that it takes for a block to be checkpointed is only the period where we ask our validators to not become compromised. It is not the, finality usually considered in blockchain. Okay, so we presented Winkle. It is a checkpointing mechanism that is both on-chain and decentralized. Additionally, Winkle could be extended, for example, to proof-of-work cryptocurrency in order to improve their finality. And I think that we have now some Q&A time.